Please give a warm Farm Bureau welcome to the Commissioner of Agriculture from Kentucky, Ryan Quarles.
Thank you, Mark. I think the one thing you forgot to mention is how much student loan debt I have as well after all those degrees. And speaking of degrees, I was at a livestock show not too long ago, and I was reminded by a farmer that he had a thermometer that had a lot of degrees on it too, and you know where that goes. But let's have a nice thank you to those who prepared our food and the farmers that grew it. Thank you so much for that wonderful lunch. You know, after watching all these presidential debates, I'm glad to have my appetite back so we can eat again. But, you know, a lot has changed. 2016 has been a magical year. The Cubs won the World Series. America elected a reality TV show star as president. And UK beat U of L in football, showing you that anything is possible in 2016. I would like to thank Kentucky Farm Bureau and your leadership for advocating on behalf of Kentucky farm families. It is an honor to be here today serving as Kentucky's Commissioner of Agriculture. Not a day goes by that the Department of Agriculture and Kentucky Farm Bureau does not interact together on behalf of what's best for Kentucky agriculture. And you are fortunate to have a Farm Bureau that is known nationally for doing a great job at not just the state level, at the federal level, but also at the grassroots levels. That's something you all should be commended for. Of course, I love coming to the annual meeting. I've got a lot of fond memories here. It's like a big family reunion for agriculture in Kentucky, coming to Louisville. I got good memories here. I won the State Farm Bureau Outstanding Youth Contest here, and of course, my fondest memory of all was getting out of stripping tobacco for a couple days every winter, so I love coming here. It's been a busy first year at the Department of Agriculture. We had a tremendous legislative session. We have a new governor. We survived 2 scares with bird flu outbreak in neighboring states, and thanks to Dr. Stout and his staff for helping prevent that from coming in and affecting our poultry industry. We went through a budget cut, which is fine. And as farmers, we'll continue to do more with less at the Department of Agriculture. We have a new state fair board. We survived a state fair and only picked up 6 pounds in 11 days, so that's a personal best. And of course, we have a lot of tremendous programs at the Department of Agriculture that continue to just be successful, thanks to the work of our predecessors. Kentucky Proud continues to be our state's most powerful marketing brand. Over $500 million is sold underneath the Kentucky Proud banner each year in Kentucky, with close to 6,000 members. We've also, at Department of Ag, started some new things. We're going after credit card theft when we inspect our gas pumps, our 60,000 gas pumps across the state. And just this year, we found a skimmer and prevented at least thousands of dollars of credit card theft coming out of your pocket and your banks as well. And so we're sending a message to criminals that will no longer tolerate the $3 billion in losses that are taken out through credit card theft at gas pumps anymore. We're playing a more active role in international trade. We continue to be a state that is interconnected and dependent upon trade, and agriculture benefits from trade. And we got to remind folks that 1 out of every 4 rows of corn harvested in Kentucky ends up overseas, and 80% of our tobacco ends up overseas. And at the state level, despite the uncertainty of what's going on in Washington, D.C. with trade deals, we'll be playing a more active role in making sure that we connect farmers with emerging markets overseas. Of course, the Department of Agriculture, we play a tremendous role in agriculture education, getting into our schools, bringing those 3 agriculture education trailers into our school districts and letting kids get their hands dirty and learn about the science behind agriculture and teach them the difference between a soybean and a green bean. And of course, the Department of Agriculture this year, along with many in the crowd's help, we started a significant conversation about hunger in Kentucky, which is the unfortunate reality for 1 in 6 Kentuckians and 1 in 5 Kentucky school children. And thanks to you, we just completed 10 regional meetings, and we're meeting with our statewide task force to come up with recommendations, because as Ag Commissioner representing an industry where we have an abundance of food and we are good at what we do, we can do a better job of helping take care of our neighbors in our hometown. And thank you, Mr. Beck, for serving on the statewide hunger task force. I hope to use this opportunity at the Kentucky Farm Bureau annual meeting each year to not only provide you with an update on somewhat of a state of agriculture for Kentucky, but also to share with you my vision for the future of our state in rural Kentucky. I was sitting down thinking about what I was going to say today, and I couldn't help but keep reflecting upon what agriculture means to me in my childhood. For me, just like you, it started working young. I started working in tobacco at 6 years old. And that's a common story across Kentucky. A lot of Kentuckians can relate to either growing up on a farm, or their parents did, or their grandparents did. And it made me reflect upon my days in 4-H and FFA, our state's premier youth development leadership organizations. And these are some of the conclusions I've come up with. Gone are the days where everyone worked on the farm or everyone knew somebody who did. Gone are the days where everyone appreciated and truly knew where their food came from. Gone are the days when you grew up on a farm, worked hard, and passed it down to the next generation easily. And gone are the days where you can find labor on your home street and home community. While some of the things may stay the same in agriculture, like complaining about the weather, my grandfather would see a different type of agricultural landscape today than he did when he was farming. But we're fortunate in this state to have a lot of strong agricultural leaders. Most of them are here today. We have the talent to push us through challenging times. And I'll just give you one example of this. A little over 15 years ago, at the conclusion of the tobacco settlement agreement, Kentucky, unlike most states, made that wise investment in setting aside 50% of our tobacco settlement money for the Agriculture Development Fund. Many of you all who worked on House Bill 611 are here today, and I can honestly say that Kentucky agriculture is in a better place now because of the leadership and foresight that you all had nearly 2 decades ago. And as I traveled 65,000 miles in 2015 and traveled this year as Ag Commissioner, I can literally see the improvements to Kentucky agriculture because of the wise decisions of leaders who serve those roles currently or before us. And that's something that we should be proud of. However, just like any day with Kentucky weather, things can change on a dime. We have been very fortunate to have had high income years in recent years. $6.5 billion in cash receipts in 2014. It slowly ticked down to in 2015 to $5.8 billion. And just this morning, as you saw Dr. Snell release the numbers, we're down to $5.4 billion in farm cash receipts, down 7% from last year and 17% from the year before. It's going to be a challenging year for farmers when it comes to aggregate income. And here are some examples. Grain prices today are about half of what they were in the summer of 2012. Feeder cattle prices are down by half as they were just a little over 2 years ago, which if they don't increase, Dave Maples reminds me on a really frequent basis, that's $400 million removed from the Kentucky agricultural economy if prices don't improve soon. And of course, our inputs continue to stay at the current levels. They did not decline. The cost of feed, fuel, time, fertilizer prices have not gone down, putting more constraint on Kentucky farmers. And then to top it all off, we're currently in the middle of a drought. And I'm very thankful and fortunate for the rain that we got this week, but we're still at least 5 inches off of where we should be. And most of Kentucky is in level D2, if not D3, drought status. And this has put getting our tobacco in case and cure in a difficult position. We are having pastures dry up. We're expecting a forage shortage, not only in Kentucky, but also with our southern states. So be sure to use the hay hotline this fall. And of course, our winter wheat's suffering right now, which will affect our yields in the coming spring and summer. And I've been told that our tobacco has suffered several quality losses, but it may be the worst yields we've had since 1983. But there are other challenges as well. The average age of a farmer in Kentucky is almost retirement age, with over 1/3 of all farmers over the age of 65. And most of those farmers above 65 have not all of them, but a significant portion of them have not identified a successor to their farms. And it's important that you take time to plan ahead. Because if you want to break up a family farm operation, there's 3 Ds that do it: divorce, disability, and death. If you haven't taken the chance to meet with an estate planning attorney, please do your family a favor and have that peace of mind and have a solid succession plan for the future. And remember, the next best thing to having a will is to be in somebody else's. So be sure to go visit your attorney. Of course, the 2018 Farm Bill discussion has already started off with Farm Bureau and other agriculture communities and organizations kicking that off. I'm thankful to be part of the Trade Committee. We're also are going to be looking at labor issues involving H-2A and H-2Bs and the future of that program as well. And so please be active when it comes to getting involved with the Farm Bill coming up. Now, I've mentioned a lot of challenges, but we've got some things in our back pocket that give us some advantages in this state. Take our location, for example. Most farmers are at most a day's drive within 2/3 of the U.S. population. We are a distribution state, which gives us a tremendous advantage when it comes to transportation costs compared to other states around the country. And in Kentucky, we have been proactive with dealing with issues that other states have struggled with, like water management in California. Here in Kentucky, we're blessed with an abundance of rainfall, although we haven't seen it much these last few months. But with Kentucky Farm Bureau and the Kentucky legislature, we started the Water Resource Board, which met as recently as this week. And so we are being proactive in our state with managing our resources. And that's something that we should be proud of. Agriculture in Kentucky has a lot of diversity and a lot of variety. Unlike some of our Midwestern states, which center their agriculture economy over 4 or 5 crops, Kentucky has a lot of variety. And that's due to a lot of small farms. We have 76,000 farms in Kentucky. 95% of them are owned and operated by Kentucky farm families. And in this state, our farmers focus on quality. So I like to say there's a lot of options and opportunities for farmers if they decide to change up their crop rotation, because we can grow everything between apples and zucchinis and everything in between, and we do it well in our state. And that's something that other states can't say so. And of course, we're a part of the safest, most abundant food supply system in the world. The American farmer has set the course and the gold standard of what is possible in food production across the world. And some of you may have heard this statistic before, but if you look at where American agriculture was now compared to 50 years ago, we have doubled the amount of food that we produce with 22 million less workers and using only 75% of the land that we used to till. That is something that not only increases our efficiencies, but also contributes to the fact that fewer and fewer and fewer people know where their food comes from because they're just not as dependent upon farmers and working out in the fields as much as often. Another thing that we have to be mindful of is the changing diet of American consumers. The millennials, the millennial generation, those born from the early 80s to the mid-90s, they are in the driver's seat right now with how food companies are marketing their food. Millennials are spending $1 trillion each year at the grocery stores on feeding themselves. And our marketers are changing their strategies because if you're 40 years or older, the food companies already know how to market to you. And so they're gearing themselves towards the millennials. And that's where the ag community, we need to do a better job of telling our story. Because when you see marketing gimmicks such as GMO-free water or hormone-free meat, we got to do a better job of telling our story and let people know that their food is already safe in its abundance. But at the same time, we have to be realistic about how the millennial mother, millennial dad goes out to their farmer's market, and they are becoming more conscientious about where their food comes from. They want to meet the farmer, and they want to know that story behind American agriculture. And to me, I know that may sound like a challenge to some, but I think it's an opportunity for us to get out in front and teach people a little bit more about where their food comes from. Another piece of optimism in Kentucky is that we've got a lot of strong leaders in the right places right now, not only at the state level, but also in Washington, D.C. You have a strong Kentucky Farm Bureau board here. You have strong county organizations, many of which I've gotten the pleasure to meet this past year. You have a strong presence in Frankfort. You have wonderful legislators, many of which are here today, who truly understand production agriculture, who have our back. And of course, we just elected a former Commissioner of Agriculture to Congress who serves now in the Agriculture Committee with Commissioner James Comer. McConnell continues to be the leader of the U.S. Senate, and we have a close working relationship with him. I have currently served on the Trump Agriculture Advisory Board and continue to work with that team to make sure that rural voices are heard and that the issues that matter most in agriculture are being advocated for during this transition period. And as just this week, Elaine Chao was named a Cabinet Secretary of Transportation, which of course, as we know, when we try to move our goods from farm to market, that's going to be a strategic asset to have a fellow Kentuckian in Washington, D.C. looking out for us. You know, in closing, I'd just like to say we do have challenging times ahead of us. And perhaps this morning, the most revealing news involves drastic decreases in farm income. I know we've had a lot of crop loss due to some bad weather this year. We're working our way out of a drought. We have some quality issues with our crops this year. But I know that we're up to the challenge because we've been through tough times before. And of course, we're in a new political environment. Rural America showed up and they voted just a month ago. And that's to be respected. I think we have a rare opportunity to make some transformational changes in government, both in Frankfort and in Washington, D.C. You know, in D.C., we have a new president, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll know who the new Secretary of Agriculture is going to be, and we're going to work closely with that individual. But also in Frankfort, we had a change of tides in the Kentucky House, and we have strong leadership in the Kentucky Senate that we can depend upon day in and day out. So expect some changes just a month from now coming out of Frankfort. And of course, this is where you play a vital role. We have a lot of new elected officials across the state. And I want to challenge you to get out and introduce yourself to them. Invite them out to your farm. Get them a cup of coffee. Explain to them what farming means to you, or what your agribusiness means to the economy, or how when there's a decrease in cattle prices, how that loss of money multiplies itself in your home economy. So please be proactive. Get out there, get to know your legislature, because if we don't, we may very well fall into that crevice that other states have, like California, where the damage has already been done. So please get out there, invite them out to your farm. If you're brave, let them drive a tractor, but make sure it's insured first by Kentucky Farm Bureau. Educate them about WOTUS, about water, about resource management, and how Kentucky farmers are already conservation-oriented because, as Mark mentioned, I'm the 9th generation of my family to be involved in farming. We want to make sure that farm is in as good a shape, if not better, so we can pass it down to the next generation. So please take time to get to know your lawmakers. And of course, the Department of Agriculture, if we can be of any help to you, please don't hesitate to contact us. If you work at the Department of Agriculture, would you please stand up and be recognized? And thank you for the hard work that you continue to do day in, day out. Thank you. And of course, our sister component is the Governor's Office of Agriculture Policy, headed up by Warren Beeler. Thank you for what you do. We work as a team. You know, he worked for me for 2 weeks and said he had enough. He went to go work for the governor, but, I'm sorry to see you go, Beeler, but I know you're in a better place. And in the same spirit that our policymakers had 20 years ago, setting up the Kentucky Agricultural Development Fund, I would like to challenge you to be forward-thinking as well. The values of hard work and our abilities to get things done in Kentucky are the things that our agriculture community thrives upon. When there are obstacles, oftentimes we turn them into opportunity. The future of agriculture has a place for all farmers in our state, both big and small. We have a lot of diversity, we have a lot of variety, and that's what gives us our strength compared to other states. But it's up to us to figure out where we want to go and what to do with it. And it goes without saying that the message we need to push forward is simple, whether it's here, whether it's in the line at the grocery store or at the county fair, that if you meet somebody that likes to eat, be sure to tell them to thank a farmer. And in today's crowd, I think I can safe to say that I just want to say thank you to all of you all here today for what you do for Kentucky agriculture, and thank you for continuing to make Kentucky proud when it comes to being a strong agricultural state. Thank you very much.
Thank you.